The alarm screamed across every station in the galactic monitoring network. Red lights flashed in patterns that most species had never seen before. These were not ordinary warnings. These were extinction-level alerts. The kind that meant something impossible was happening somewhere in the galaxy. Commander Velrix of the Corvani species stood frozen at her console. Her four eyes blinked in sequence as she tried to process what she was seeing. The data made no sense. It had to be a malfunction. There was simply no other explanation for what the sensors were reporting. A vessel was inside the corona of star system Helios 7. Not near it, not approaching it. Inside it, operating, moving, functioning. She immediately contacted the Central Authority. Within moments, representatives from 17 different species appeared on her holographic display. All of them were expressions of fear and confusion. The Drelmari ambassador was shaking visibly. The Euthani counselor had already begun praying to his ancient gods. "This is not possible," said High Counselor Morath of the Syndicate. His voice carried the weight of 3,000 years of galactic knowledge. No material in the known universe can withstand such temperatures. The plasma alone would destroy any vessel within microseconds. Commander Velrix nodded slowly. "I am aware of this, High Counselor. And yet, the vessel remains intact. It has been inside the corona for nearly 2 standard hours now." Silence fell across the communication channel. 2 hours. That was not a glitch. That was not a sensor error. Something was genuinely surviving conditions that should have vaporized it instantly. "What species operates this vessel?" asked Ambassador Drell. Her tentacles were wrapped tightly around her chair in anxiety. Velrix checked her readings 3 times before answering. "The vessel is registered to a species called humans. They are from a planet designated Earth in the Orion Arm." "Humans?" Counselor Morath frowned. "The newcomers? They have only been part of the galactic community for 40 solar cycles. How could they possibly possess such technology?" No one had an answer. The humans were considered a primitive species by galactic standards. They had barely achieved faster than light travel. Their homeworld was small and unremarkable. Their lifespans were short. By all measurements, they should have been centuries away from any significant technological achievements. And yet, here they were, flying inside a star. The monitoring station began receiving a transmission from the human vessel. Velrix patched it through to all connected parties with trembling hands. A human face appeared on screen. It was a female with dark hair pulled back tightly. She was smiling, as if she was not currently existing in conditions that would kill every known life form in the galaxy. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the research vessel Prometheus," the human said casually. "We are detecting some unusual communication activity in our direction. Is everything all right out there?" Counselor Morath leaned forward. "Captain Chun, you are currently inside the corona of a star. Your vessel should have been destroyed. How are you still alive?" Captain Chun looked confused for a moment. Then she laughed. She actually laughed. Several of the alien representatives made sounds of distress at this response. "Oh, you mean our solar diving mission?" "Yeah, we've been doing this for a while now. We're collecting plasma samples for energy research. Is that what triggered your alarms?" "Sorry about that. We should have filed a notification." "A notification?" Ambassador Drone's voice had risen to a high pitch. "Captain, no species in galactic history has ever entered a stellar corona and survived. What you are doing is considered theoretically impossible." There was a pause. Captain Chun turned to speak with someone off-screen. There was muffled conversation that the translator could not fully capture. Words like "standard procedure" and "nothing special" could be heard. When she turned back, her expression was one of genuine surprise. "I apologize. We didn't realize this would cause such concern. For humans, solar research missions have been common for over a century. Our thermal shielding technology allows us to operate in extremely high-temperature environments. We assumed other species had similar capabilities. They did not. No species had anything even remotely similar. The Golvani had spent 300 years trying to develop materials that could withstand even a fraction of corona temperatures. The Drellmori had lost entire fleets attempting to study stars up close. The Euthani considered their sun to be a deity, specifically because of its untouchable nature. But the humans just flew into them, casually, for research. Over the next several hours, more information was requested and provided. The humans explained their technology in simple terms. They talked about composite materials and magnetic field generators. They discussed heat dispersion systems and radiation filtering. Each explanation only raised more questions. How had they developed these materials? Through trial and error, they said. Many failed attempts, many explosions, many deaths. But they kept trying until they succeeded. Why would they risk so much for star research? Because they wanted to understand how stars worked. Because they thought it would be useful. Because someone said it was impossible, and humans apparently took that as a challenge. Councillor Morris requested a full technological exchange. He expected negotiations. He expected demands. The humans simply agreed and sent over their research files freely. Thousands of years of alien science were appended in a single data transfer. The materials humans used were not unknown to galactic science. They were considered useless, too difficult to manufacture, too unstable under normal conditions. Every species had abandoned research into them long ago, but humans had persisted. They had found ways to stabilize these materials through processes that were considered far too dangerous to attempt. You expose yourselves to lethal radiation during the manufacturing process, observed the Euthani counselor after reviewing the files. The cancer rates among your workers must be devastating. Captain Chun shrugged. We have good medical technology, and workers sign up voluntarily. They know the risks. Most of them say it's worth it to contribute to something bigger. This concept was alien to the aliens. No species would willingly accept shortened lifespans for abstract scientific gains. No species would continue research that killed its own members. But humans did, constantly. It seemed to be central to their nature. The Prometheus continued its mission inside the star for another 3 days. It collected samples. It took readings. It performed experiments that would have been inconceivable to any other civilization. And then it simply flew out. The ship was damaged but functional. The crew was tired but healthy. They had done something impossible and treated it like a normal workday. In the weeks that followed, the galactic community struggled to process what had happened. Emergency meetings were held. Scientific councils were formed. Religious leaders offered various interpretations. Some said the humans were blessed by cosmic forces. Others suggested they were too stupid to understand the danger they faced. A few whispered that perhaps the universe had made a mistake when it created such a reckless species. But the truth was simpler and more frightening. Humans were just different. Their planet had extreme conditions. Burning deserts and frozen wastelands existed side by side. Massive storms ravaged their world regularly. The ground beneath them moved and destroyed their cities. And yet they survived. They adapted. They built and rebuilt endlessly. Their evolution had produced a species that refused to accept limitations. Where other civilizations saw impossible barriers, humans saw challenges to overcome. Where others calculated risks and retreated, humans calculated risks and proceeded anyway. The Galactic Council eventually updated its classification of human capabilities. They were no longer listed as a primitive species. They were reclassified as unpredictable. A new category had to be created specifically for them. Captain Chun received numerous invitations to speak at scientific conferences across the galaxy. She attended some of them. She explained that solar diving was actually one of the safer things humans did. She mentioned deep-sea exploration in pressure that would crush most vessels. She talked about mountain climbing on peaks where the air was too thin to breathe. She described spacewalks where a single mistake meant instant death. The audience members at these conferences often needed medical attention afterward. The stress of hearing about human activities proved too much for many species to handle. Valrix continued her work at the monitoring station. She had been changed by the experience. Every time a human vessel appeared on her sensors, she felt a mixture of fear and admiration. These creatures were terrifying in their capabilities, but they were also strangely inspiring. One cycle, a young Kavani officer asked her about the famous incident. Everyone in the galaxy knew about it now. It had become a defining moment in interspecies relations. "Commander," the young officer said nervously, "what do you think the humans will do next?" Valrix considered the question carefully. She had studied humans extensively since that day. She had read their history. She had watched their entertainment. She had learned about their dreams and ambitions. "I believe," she said slowly, "that they will keep pushing, keep exploring, keep doing things we consider impossible. They will fly into stars. They will dive into black holes. They will reach the edges of the universe itself. And when they get there, they will find something new to challenge them." The young officer shuddered. "That sounds frightening." "It is," Valrix agreed, "but it is also magnificent. The humans remind us that the universe is not as limited as we thought. They show us that impossible is just a word. Perhaps that is their true gift to the galaxy." She returned to her console and watched the sensors. Somewhere out there, human vessels were doing things that defied explanation. They were sailing through space with the same reckless courage that had carried them across oceans on their homeworld. They were exploring and dying and discovering in equal measure. The emergency protocols remained in place. They would always activate when a human vessel did something unprecedented. But the responses had changed. Instead of panic, there was now curiosity. Instead of fear, there was anticipation. What would the humans do next? No one knew. And somehow, that uncertainty had become the most exciting thing in the galaxy. The Prometheus returned to Earth after its mission. Captain Chun retired from active duty a few years later. But the legacy of that flight continued. Other human vessels pushed further into stars. They went deeper. They stayed longer. Each mission expanded the boundaries of what was considered survivable. And the galaxy watched. It had no choice. When humans were involved, watching was all anyone could do. Well, that and updating emergency protocols. Because with humans, emergencies were not really emergencies. They were just regular Tuesday afternoons. The stars burned on, and humanity flew into them. Again and again and again. Because that was simply what humans did. They faced the impossible and made it ordinary. They stared at the fire of creation itself and thought about what useful things they could do with it. It was terrifying. It was inspiring. It was purely, absolutely human.